Hello everyone, we're here with three of the more exciting new smartphones launched in 2018. The Honor 10, the OnePlus 6 and the Moto G6 Plus from Motorola. Going to do a quick side-by-side to see how they stack up in terms of performance, features, camera tech, all that kind of shenanigans. So first of all, they're all quite sizable handsets. They all sport a screen size around about the 6-inch mark. So you've got a 5.84 inch Honor 10, more or less matched by the 5.9-inch Moto G6 Plus, although that said, the Moto G6 Plus is, as you can see there, clearly bigger thanks to these thicker bezels above and below the display, whereas the Honor 10 stretches almost up to the very top of the handset, that screen, thanks to the little bit of notch action there. The OnePlus 6, however, is the granddaddy with a massive 6.28-inch display, one of the biggest smartphone screens you'll find ever. But despite that, it is more or less the same size as that Moto G6 Plus, again because it sports very slender bezels, especially again up above. The display reaches almost to the very top, or very limits of this device, because there's a bit of notch action to house the selfie camera and the speaker, which obviously you do not get on the Moto. So if you want compact and hand-friendly, then definitely the Honor 10 is the way to go. It feels nice. It definitely doesn't feel like a 5.8-inch handset. It feels a bit more compact than that. Really nice, comfortable grip. Sadly, none of these smartphones are IP rated, although the Moto G6 Plus does at least have the P2i rated water repellent design, so if it gets a bit of a splashing, then it should be absolutely fine. OnePlus has also made little attempts to prevent water from infiltrating the ports and ruining your device. They reckon it'll be fine if you drop it in a puddle or take it out in a rainstorm, but again, full submersion's not a good idea. And the Honor 10, again, not IP rated, so don't go dropping it in your pint. If we flip them all over, you will see, of course, you get a nice, funky glass design on all of these handsets. Very popular, very fashionable in 2018. Nice and shiny, but of course they do scuff up a storm as well. That said, you can pick up the OnePlus 6 in a matte version as well. It's once again all glass, but this time it doesn't have that shiny finish and it hides the scuffs and everything a little bit easier as well, always worth bearing in mind. And we especially like the silk white version. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It's actually got crushed pearl integrated into the glass, which makes it ridiculously luxury, but it is limited edition. The Moto G6 Plus is probably the least attractive of the bunch, but it's still not exactly ugly. It's got a reasonably sleek design considering that low asking price, and the nice curvaceous edges mean it is again a comfortable enough grip. But we've definitely got to give a shout out to the Honor 10 with that really funky 80s nightclub style striation back. Looks absolutely stunning, and as you see, if you tilt it towards the light, it sort of develops a purple hue, and then it looks more of a sort of the standard Honor blue when you look at it head on. Very funky stuff indeed. All three of these phones are thankfully rather rugged. The OnePlus 6 wins out as it's fully constructed of Gorilla Glass 5, so we've given it a good old bashing. That seems absolutely fine, but we've put the Honor 10 and the Moto G6 Plus through plenty of punishment as well, and again, they seem to be reasonably hardy, no scratches or chips just yet, touch wood. And as a final design point, it's also worth pointing out that all three of these blowers rock a 3.5mm headphone jack, so you can get a wired connection on the go. Now, all three of these phones sport a fingerprint sensor housed somewhere on the chassis. In the case of the OnePlus 6, it's actually around the back here. It's a funky, almost oval-shaped design, and it is super swift. It's definitely the fastest of the sensors here. Just quick tap, you're immediately into your desktops, no hanging around whatsoever. On the Moto G6 Plus, it's also once again housed down there beneath the screen. It's not quite as nippy, unfortunately. A quick tap, you'll be hanging around a second or so before your desktops launch, but not too shabby. And despite the fact that it's really slender, it is super accurate. You rarely get a mishit on it. In the case of the Honor 10, it's quite a funky little one. It's once again housed beneath the screen, just like on the Moto G6 Plus, but this time it's actually integrated into the glass. So even if your thumb is a little bit wet, it'll still recognize it and launch you into your desktops. It's not 100% accurate all the time. Sometimes if it's a bit too moist, then it won't quite get the read, but more often than not it does actually work. It's very impressive stuff. And all three of these phones also boast a bit of face recognition as well, so just quick tap the power button and you're straight into your desktops as long as it recognises your mug, and it works really well in low light as well. The Moto G6 Plus occasionally falters in low light, but the Honor 10 and the OnePlus 6 absolutely fantastic, and the OnePlus is just so fast. Again, you will never see the lock screen even in those low light conditions. And if you dive into the security settings of the OnePlus and go into Face Unlock, you'll actually see that there's an assistive lighting option in there as well, which just makes the screen really bright when it's trying to see your mug in the dark, and that just helps to light you up and get an accurate read. So as I mentioned before, the OnePlus has the more spacious screen out of all of them at 6.28 inches, though there is a bit of notch action of course intruded in there, just as there is in the Honor, whereas you don't get that with the Moto G6 Plus with its 5.9 inch screen. It's an IPS panel in the case of the Moto and the Honor, but the OnePlus rocks a nice bit of AMOLED, so those colours are just ever so slightly more punchy. All the same, you get a full HD plus resolution in all three cases because they do use a slightly stretched aspect ratio. In the case of the Honor 10, it's a 19:9, exactly the same for the OnePlus. And in the case of the Moto G6 Plus, it's a more standard 18:9. Dive into the display settings on all of these handsets and you'll notice that you've got some configuration that you can do. You can calibrate the screen to get the colour output just the way you want it, which is always good to see. And you also get a form of night mode in all three cases as well, just to filter the blue light at night and make it a more easy on the eye experience. As for the actual software experience, it's Android Oreo in all three cases. The Moto actually rocks an almost vanilla version of Android. It's basically how Google intended it, with no clunky overlay or anything. Their only addition is the Moto app, which actually has some pretty decent features. For instance, in the Moto Actions, you've got the handy one-handed mode, so just a quick swipe will minimise the screen. Like so, and there you go, and you can flip around there and all of your apps will work in that shrunken screen mode as well. The Honor 10, exactly the same, quick swipe on the navigation bar and there you have it. You can use all of your apps in this more shrunken mode. Unfortunately, the OnePlus doesn't support exactly the same kind of feature, despite the fact that it is the biggest of all of the handsets, but you can drag down the notifications tab with just a quick swipe anywhere on the screen, so that does help somewhat. Back in that Moto app, you've got various other gesture support as well. The Moto display is quite good in terms of it's got the night display mode, which the others have built into the actual settings, and you get Moto Voice, which is an alright kind of voice assistant. Of course, the Honor 10 packs a nice bit of a motion UI on top of Android Oreo, and again you get loads of features packed in there. Smart assistants, you've got that one-handed mode, and various other gesture support as well, and of course good old voice control as well. The motion UI also adds likes the facial recognition, the knuckle modes, you can just drag across the screen to get multitasking on the go, things like that. So various things just to make the phone a little bit easier to use. And on top of the OnePlus 6, of course you have the Oxygen OS overlays. This adds things like the shelf shortcut, so you can get fast access to all of your favourite contacts and apps and so on. You've got full customization in there as well, so you can dive on into the settings, change the icon pack, you can change the fonts, all that kind of stuff. And just like a motion UI, there is also a gaming mode as well. So you just dive into here, go into gaming mode, and there you go. It just basically blocks notifications while you're trying to play your games, gives you a little network boost when you're playing the likes of PUBG, stuff like that. Speaking of gaming, all three of these handsets are absolutely fine for blasting through the latest titles. However, the Moto G6 Plus is a little bit more basic because it is the cheaper of the three. It's rocking a Snapdragon 630 backed by the 4 or 6 gigs of RAM. I believe it's just 4 gigs of RAM here in the UK. You will still be able to play the likes of PUBG. We've played it on the low detail settings and the frame rate has been absolutely fine, but you can play it on the high detail settings on the other two handsets here. The Honor 10 rocks, of course, Huawei's Kirin 970 chipset backed by 4 gigs of RAM, and again it's super nippy. And the OnePlus 6 is the overall winner with a Snapdragon 845 chipset, the latest Qualcomm premium platform, and in this case is backed by either 6 or 8 gigs of RAM depending on which model you buy. We've run a quick bit of Antutu benchmarking on all three of these phones. Unsurprisingly, the OnePlus is the clear winner with 267,000. It's generally around the 260 to 270,000 area when you run it. Just over 200,000 for the Honor 10. And of course, the Moto G6 Plus, bless it, is lagging in third place with half the score of the Honor 10. But as I say, you can still play the latest games on it, but it just means over the course of a 2-year contract, you're likely to see more slowdown on the Moto G6 Plus. What about storage space? Well, you get 128GB of storage space as standard on the Honor 10, and the OnePlus you got a choice of either 64, 128 or 256, depending on how much space you need. Of course, the higher the model, the more it will cost you. Whereas the good old Moto G6 Plus comes with 64 gigs as standard. However, while the Honor 10 and the OnePlus do not support microSD memory card expansion, the good old Moto G6 Plus does. You can expand by up to a further 128 gigs, so you can feasibly have more storage on this than on the Honor 10 or the OnePlus, and I suppose you bump up for the 256 gig model. Battery life is also a highlight of all three of these phones, although more so on the Honor and the OnePlus. You get a 3,400 mAh cell here on the Honor 10. It lasts easily a day and a half between charges quite happily. However, the OnePlus is definitely the granddaddy in this area. It's got a slightly smaller battery, 3,300 mAh compared with the Honor 10, But despite that, it's got that energy efficient Snapdragon 845 chipset, and that means you'll easily get a day and a half, closer to 2 days of use out of it. It's been going for just over a day now, and as you can see, it's still on 43%. As for the Moto G6 Plus, it's got 3200 mAh cell in it, and it'll last easily a day, more up towards a day and a half as long as you don't absolutely pummel it. And of course you get a form of fast charge in all three cases as well. You get supercharge here on the Honor 10, dash charge on the OnePlus, and turbo charge here on the Moto G6 Plus. Which one has the best name? That's for you to decide. Which brings us on to the camera tech, and of course, in all three cases you get a dual lens snapper, which is, whoa, going crazy, pretty much the norm these days. So in the case of the Honor 10, it's a 16 megapixel primary RGB lens backed by a 24 megapixel monochrome lens. I believe they're both f1.8 aperture. In the case of the OnePlus 6, it's a 16 megapixel primary lens, 20 megapixel secondary lens, and they're both f1.7. And the Moto G6 Plus rocks a 12 megapixel primary lens backed by a 5 megapixel secondary lens, again f1.7, just like the OnePlus. If you actually dive into the camera apps, you'll notice they offer some similar features, but a very different experience overall. The Honor 10 is actually rammed with features. They've all offer a portrait mode of some description, which is generally quite easy to access from the main screen. Just have to dive into here, go to portrait, there it is, and it's right here on the main display on the Honor as well. That just uses both lenses just to focus on your subject, capture them nice and clean, and give a nice bit of bokeh action in the background, and it works pretty well on all three. In the case of the Moto, you also get a couple of little bonus features such as the spot color mode, which adds a nice funky effect, just takes one particular color, removes all the others for a nice monochrome effect. In the case of the Honor, it's absolutely stacked full of features. Look at this, you've got so much bonus stuff on there. And the OnePlus, again, like the Moto, it's just a few little features, but they are actually genuinely useful. So all three of these phones have a form of Pro mode, which basically just gives you full manual settings, so you can shoot whatever you like, and you can also shoot raw footage as well on the Honor and the OnePlus. And when it comes to the video, you can actually shoot 4K resolution footage on all three of these handsets as well, which is great to see, especially on the Moto G6 Plus, which is that little bit cheaper. Of course, OnePlus does win out once again because it is a 4K 60 frames per second effort, or you can do your standard 30 frames per second, whereas you can only do 30 FPS on the Honor and the Moto. And as for around the front, you get a 24 megapixel f2.0 selfie camera here on the Honor. It's a 16 megapixel effort on the OnePlus 6, and it's a streamlined 8 megapixel effort on the Moto. We are going to be getting portrait mode on the OnePlus 6 soon with its selfie camera, so stay tuned for that in an update. And that in a nutshell is the Honor 10, the OnePlus 6 and the Moto G6 Plus side by side. Of course there is a difference in terms of the price as well. The Moto G6 Plus is the more affordable handset here for £269 in the UK. The Honor 10 is a bit of a jump up from that, £399, whereas the OnePlus 6 is the more expensive, as you might expect given some of those really premium specs. That starts at £469. So which one would you go for? Let us know in the comments below. It'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to give us a subscribe if you want to see more comparisons and deep feature dives on the latest and greatest handsets. Thanks for watching, everyone.